Wow, wow, that was so cool. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Part two of the Mind Maze. We're going to be talking about mental wholeness, mental wellness today. And we're so excited. Last week was so amazing. It was phenomenal. We talked about the mind, we talked about just figuring out just basically having a healthy mind and what that looks like. And we knew that so many people had questions last week. We didn't have time to really go through them. And so today we want to just focus this next few minutes on just taking questions. We've got our amazing coach Rosie, who's here with me today. And we're just going to talk through mental wellness. So if you have any questions, we want to encourage you to drop those into the chat. Coach Rosie is a phenomenal. I'm just going to bring her on, and we're just going to talk through, what she does. She does grief counseling. She is certified. She is legit in every sense of the word. She's the best person to really talk to about mental wholeness. And I think this is such, with the pandemic and everything that's happening in the world, I think this is the perfect time to really talk about mental wholeness. So good to have you, Coach Rosie. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm good. I'm doing very well. The weather is a little bit, funky today, but I'm good.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about your background, and then right after that, we're just going to jump into some of the questions that we have here.
All right, sounds good. So I am Coach Rosie. I am in Chattanooga, Tennessee. That is about an hour and a half away from Atlanta, Georgia. So most people know Atlanta, Georgia. So geographically, I'm about an hour and a half away from Atlanta. I am originally from Nigeria, but pretty much grown up in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So I call Chattanooga home. Did all my schooling here. I went to the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga for my psychology degree, then also obtained a certification from the American Academy of Grief Counseling, as well as my life and mindset coaching certification from New Skills Academy. I am all about mental wellness. I am all about wholeness. I am all about all things you being well and living your best life is as whole and as full as you can. I believe that it is important for us to be in a place of wholeness when we walk through life in general. Things happen. Yes, we have traumatic experiences, but there is you are able to find passion and purpose through the pain. So my existence on life is to help inspire and empower people to live to their highest potential. So that's
So
me.
good. Good. Thank you so much. Welcome to God Culture. Welcome to our virtual today.
Sure.
I think the first thing that I'm going to throw at you
Mhm.
is what I would call anxiety, an anxiety
Mhm.
disorder.
Mhm.
A lot of people deal with anxiety. I know people would just literally go into a panic attack mode, and
Yeah.
it's like you can't breathe. You're like
Mhm.
you don't even know what's going on. Sometimes you maybe even just wake up, from sleep, like middle of the night, and you just
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah.
Um, for people that are dealing with that, what are some baseline, you know, practical things for people that are dealing with lots of anxiety, especially now with the pandemic and people being home and isolated.
Yeah. So anxiety, first of all, I want to say that if you're dealing with anxiety, you are not alone. So just know that. I do sometimes have anxiety attacks where I'm like, okay, what is happening right now? But when I find myself in that place, I ground myself. The first thing that I like to do is grounding. It's a grounding technique that I think helps you bring yourself back to your senses. So it's about what you can see, what you can feel, what you can hear, what you can smell, and what you can taste. So engage all five of your senses immediately to bring yourself back to, okay, I know that things are happening around me. I know that I'm panicking right now, but take both of your feet, place it on the ground. If you're outside, try to get as if you're a germaphobe like me, you may not want to take your shoes off. However, if you've got on socks or something, try as much as possible to get as close to being, your feet touching the ground. So skin on ground if you can. If you're on the inside, take your shoes off, take your socks off, and get as close as you can to touching the ground. Then name things that you can see, that you can physically see, name them, say them out loud. Things that you can hear, things that you can smell. That all brings you back to that present moment and that reality that, okay, I know I'm freaking out right now. I know that I'm panicking about something, but okay, these are the things that I can see, smell, hear, taste, and feel. And that tends to bring you back.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I think that's very, very practical. A lot of people are struggling with that. And interestingly, one of the first questions that we have here would be, love some suggestions on how to deal with the person that has lots of anxiety, which you just talked about.
Yeah.
She's suggested praying, deep breathing, focusing on the truth of God, journaling, essential oils. We also have, just so other people know, we have a panel today. So we also have Kemi Akinbusuyi, who's also going to be chiming in. So I'm going to bring her in shortly once we're done with this first question. So how do you, how do you handle that moment when if you're by yourself, especially, and there's really no one that you can call? How do you handle that moment when you're calming yourself down? Now you're being present. Now you're putting your feet on the ground. Okay, maybe whatever it is. What should you do next? Should that just be texting someone, calling someone, praying? What's a good next step for that? Reaching out to a coach like yourself?
Yeah.
What would you do next?
So definitely reaching out. I think when you know that you have that you do deal with anxiety, the first thing that I like to say is, yes, you can pray your way through this. Pray yourself through the situation and pray yourself through, because that should always be our focus. Is always taking our problems to God. He tells us in First Peter 5:7, cast all our cares on him because he cares for us. So of course pray, but then also have yourself an accountability partner. I believe that accountability partners work for every aspect of your life. I think when you know that I deal with anxiety, okay, have that person that you trust, whether it's a counselor, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a friend, a family member, someone that you trust and that can bring you back to, okay, let's talk this thing through. Let's talk out the situation. It's always important, once you've allowed yourself to come back to the present, then call your person. Like we all say, this person's my person. Get you a person that you call that can help you and walk you through what is happening at that particular moment. I always encourage having an accountability partner for any situation in life.
Fantastic. All right, very good. So I'm going to bring in Kemi right now. So good to have you here with us. Tell us a little bit about you, very briefly, your background, and some of the work that you're doing in the mental wellness space.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Kemi Akinbusuyi, and I'm based here in the state of Arizona as a licensed therapist. I became a therapist about 6 years ago. It was kind of a career change for me. I was doing administration and healthcare for quite a number of years. And I like to merge sort of my background with that transition. So, I was a single mom, and, working in administration, I saw that a lot of younger people were coming into the long-term care setting. And I kind of felt disconnected. I'm like, I kind of need to have some more clinical knowledge in order to be able to better administer healthcare well. So I went back to school and got my master's. And it really helped me because I was able to kind of see both sides of the money side and the paperwork side and the compliance side, and as well as the mental health side. I am Nigerian. I'm an immigrant, came here when I was 14 years old. I think all of that has kind of shaped my journey into the different modalities that I use in counseling, the population that I serve. And I'm definitely excited to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's talk about the D word, depression, which growing up as a kid, I actually struggled with depression myself. People wonder now why I'm always so joyful, always excited. I'm always probably the life of the party wherever I am. And I don't like sad people around me. I mean, people that if you're going through something, you can call me and I can help lift your energy, help bring you up to a space where you are positive, and I help change your perspective. And so I'm not saying, if you're depressed that you have a problem. I'm just saying that I like to have people around me that lift me up and encourage me. But I have been through that journey of dealing with depression. In fact, my mom used to be pretty concerned about it, just because, like you just sit down, I'll just sit down for a while and just stay in one place and just be there, just sad, not knowing why, not being able to place what the issues were. Wow. And so let's start with you, Coach Rosie. What is depression? How do you know that you're depressed? And then we'll kind of go to Kemi as well to kind of share some thoughts on how to deal with that.
Sure.
Yeah. So, like you, I, dealt with depression as well. More recently, though, from after losing my father, and I want to say that it actually went back a little bit further back before that. I think it was when I first lost my sister. But I also, being Nigerian, there are certain things that we don't necessarily put labels on, right? Especially, and then culturally, there are certain things that we don't do that when you find yourself in a different setting. So now we're in the American culture or society, there are things that are happening after the loss of a child, or, things of that nature that we don't necessarily get to experience. So I think I would say that it started back then for me, but I didn't get an actual grasp on it until I actually went to get help for myself. And I would say for me personally, what let me know that, okay, something's wrong is I found myself in this period of time where I lost interest in my, in the normal things that I would do. For the most part, I would say that I am an introverted extrovert. So take that how you want to, right? I'm good when I'm with people, but I can also spend time by myself. Right. But I started finding out that I would make plans. I wouldn't show up to the plans. I'd be like, oh, I'm coming. I wouldn't go. I wouldn't call. I didn't feel like I needed to tell anybody I wasn't coming. I was just like a no call, no show type situation. I wasn't eating as I used to. And I love food. I am a foodie. So, there's that. I was like, wait, something's not right for me. You lose interest in the things that you normally have interest in. You're not as engaged as you normally are. And the fact that it lasted more than 2-3 days for me was concerning, because there are days where we wake up and we're not necessarily on cloud 9. We wake up, sometimes we're on cloud 5, and that's okay, because life is happening around us and we're experiencing that. But at the same time, I think it was the consistency of it, the duration. And I was like, okay, I'm a month into feeling this way. I need to find out what's happening. And that's when, it was like, all right, well, you have major depression disorder. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to come back to you. Can you talk a little bit? What are some practical ways to deal with depression? I know most church folk will tell you to go to your pastor.
Of course.
What's a good balance of the spiritual perspective and the professional perspective?
Sure. It's a great question. I think having kind of a clear understanding, if it's depression as in, I'm feeling a little blue today, versus I have depression. And I think sometimes we mix that up often. So I think just kind of having this awareness, kind of like what Coach Rosie mentioned, duration. Am I just blue? Is it because there were some triggers yesterday? Was work just stressful? For overachievers like you guys and I, sometimes we don't know how to set boundaries. And I've been privileged to work with, counselors and other professionals. People and other professionals just don't know how to ask for help. And so when they're blue or just feeling down, they mix it up, and when they're depressed, they mix it up with, oh, I'm just blue. I'm a nurse, I'm a doctor, I know what depression is, or, I'm a pastor, I'm a helper, or I'm a public speaker, I'm good, I got this covered. So I think being able to have a clear understanding, What is it? Is it depression? Is it overwhelm? Am I just tired? Do I just need to rest?
Good.
Then, of course, when the duration is getting longer, I'm starting to feel symptoms of apathy. I can't get out of bed. I can't continue my normal functioning. Like, it's affecting my work, my kids. Then it's time to seek help. So I think just learning to manage I'm just blue at home with things sort of like the ones Coach Rosie mentioned, kind of bringing yourself back to center awareness. Where am I? Am I watching TV all day and I'm feeling kind of blue? Then I need to change that up. I need to grab a book and read it, change my environment, change my scenery, go for a walk. What am I consuming? I talk a lot about nutrition. People from various ethnicities eat a lot of starch.
Yes.
Yeah. So am I consuming so much starch? Do I have enough fiber in me? And just kind of looking at some of those basic things and then crossing over to, wait a minute, maybe I do have depression. Maybe I need to talk to my primary care provider. And then maybe I need to seek a counselor, a psychiatrist, those types of things. So I think having a clear understanding of the two types of blues, I think is a good start.
That's good.
So good. So good. Let's go back to you, Coach Rosie. So can you try to define depression for people that are watching? It's like, okay, what exactly is depression? What would you say it is?
Yeah, so I think it goes back, if I could piggyback real quick off of what Miss Kemi said, there's this, we get it so we what's the word I'm looking for? There's a misrepresentation of what depression is versus I'm just having a bad day. I was triggered. Work was crazy for me. So now here we are. I think that one of the things that we also need to do, and I mentioned this to a friend the other day, is that we're not honest with ourselves. So there's this denial, especially when we are in the field of healthcare, for our doctors and our nurses and our counselors and our therapists, we know the language. Because we know the language, so we avoid saying certain words. We avoid saying certain things because we don't want people to feel or to be able to categorize us in this, oh, they're depressed. But let's just bring it to the forefront right now that for the last year and some months now, we've been in a pandemic. Yeah. And there's a difference between feeling overwhelmed as lay people who are not in the medical field and being overwhelmed with the things that are being seen on a daily basis in the medical field. So for any medical person that's listening or watching right now, I think the first thing that you have to do is be honest with yourself and don't avoid the language around saying, I really do need to talk to someone because I am depressed, right? Because it's very, very important that if we're going to get help, there's honesty. Yeah. So now to go back to your question, I'm sorry, I know as a Nigerian, sometimes I tend to not answer the question because I'm like, wait, I got something to say. But I would say if we're defining it's depression is a mood disorder. It causes us to have a persistent feeling of being sad or having a loss of interest. So here again for our medical people, and I really want to, I'm talking to the medical personnel because my heart is heavy for them right now because there's so much happening for them. Yeah. And there's so much that they're seeing. Yes, we on the outside, we see the numbers and we hear about it, but they are physically experiencing it every single day and not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. And then they have to take this stuff with them and not necessarily having that family, that physical touch that they need in order to bring them back, because that touch is important. As humans, we need that every now and then to just say, hey, let me just hug you. I've been telling people that what's wrong with the world right now is we're not hugging each other. We're not able to physically feel, that love from someone else because there's so much that can be said or not said with just giving a hug. So I think if I were to define it, I would just say that it's a mood disorder that is a persistent feeling of sadness and loss of interest.
Wow.
Yes.
And that sometimes, for some people, can lead to other thoughts like suicidal thoughts, feelings of hopelessness. I don't have a future. There's no point. And so I know, obviously, that's something that kind of came to the forefront with the interview with I think Meghan and Oprah. And that kind of brought that whole topic of mental disorders and kind of feeling like you're against the world and you're asking for help and no one's listening, and whatever part of the stage you stand on with that whole thing. Let's talk about that very briefly when it comes to suicidal thoughts. I've never experienced it before. So if someone came to me and said I'm having suicidal thoughts, I'm going to be binding some demons. Straight up, that's what I'll do. So let's talk about that. I don't know if you've had any experience with someone who's had suicidal thoughts. What are some practical things that people that deal with this can do? And I think we can start with you, Kemi. If you can also, because you also have I would say I've known you for a long time, so I think we've been in the same church circles, kind of dissecting. Is there a spiritual dimension to mental, illnesses? And just using the perspective of suicidal thoughts to kind of answer that. What would you say are some practical things that people can do in also finding help and navigating spiritual and something that's really just need to call a suicidal hotline immediately?
Yes. It's a great one. It's one that is so prevalent right now just because of the season that we're in.
Yeah.
It's very important to, again, have a clear mark for both. There's fleeting suicidal thoughts that we all kind of have. We can't call it suicidal. It's like, I wish this were over. Life is just so hard. I'm so exhausted when we're feeling ill or when trauma strikes or, grief and loss. We all experience those types of, I just want to escape from this feeling right now. So that's there.
Right.
That could be suicidal thoughts, but somehow we need to become careful when we're defining that. Then we go over to the suicidal, clinical definition of suicidal thoughts. Do I have a plan? How long have I had this thought? What's the duration? What kinds of thoughts come with that? Do I actually visualize myself doing something? So usually when we do assessments in mental health, it's always, do you have a plan? And when there's no plan, we call it passive suicidal thoughts, which is still cause for concern. But then we almost can sit back and say, oh, yes, this person doesn't have a plan, at least not that they're communicating. People have plans and sometimes are too embarrassed to share. So when a person ever verbalizes any thought of, oh, it's over, I wish it were over, I'm exhausted. Of course, it's time to start looking at other ways to support them. But I think it's always important to separate both. So then we cross over to the church setting. And like Rotimi mentioned, and this is an area of mine that I'm very passionate about. I have quite a number of Christians on my caseload just because I kind of gravitate towards it. And I've struggled in the last, I became a born again Christian when I was 14 years old. And the stuff didn't make sense to me because I feel like Christians they stop being real. And that's like the biggest issue. So in the church circle, we have a person that comes up with depression, suicidal thoughts. So we can look at it a lot of different ways. I believe there's a spiritual component to every ailment, physical, mental, emotional. So if we can all agree on that, then we can now step into the fact that, yes, there's a spiritual component, but there's also physical symptoms. So if we get a person that comes to church and starts complaining of these types of mental, emotional type issues up until the very severe, oh, I'm feeling suicidal, then we need to, first of all, get them professional help because we're seeing the physical symptoms.
So good.
Yeah.
Then we can follow it up. Yes, you need prayers. Yes, we need to bind the demons. Of course, all of that stuff can come, but we need to first treat the symptoms. A person comes with a headache,
That's
right?
really good.
Hey, take Tylenol. Then we start digging. Hey, get an MRI. Hey, do this and do that. I look at prayer and casting and binding of demons as the further exploration that
Yeah.
kind of in a medical way. Yes, you present with suicidal ideation symptoms. We need to treat that right away. Then we need to further explore, is it because of grief and loss? Yes, there's a
Yeah.
spiritual component. Yes, we need to bind the demons, but we need to be very careful because everything matters. We can't just say,
Mhm.
forget the doctor, let's just pray. Because again, we all know that
Right.
that doesn't work alone.
Yeesh, that's so
Absolutely.
good.
That's good.
That's so good. I
That's
feel
good.
like, yeah, oof, that's good stuff. Wow. Yeah, because I mean, just from our spiritual background, a lot of times it's like you can't even say how you feel,
Right.
because
Right.
there's a certain we call it the word of faith
Mhm.
kind of concept. And so if you are feeling certain symptoms, you're not allowed to say those out loud, because it's like
Yeah.
you're confessing negatively on yourself.
Mhm.
Coach Rosie, I don't know if you've had that experience before. Let's talk about that very briefly.
Yeah.
How can we, as people of faith, be real with things that we're
Mhm.
feeling? And what's the balance? Because I do understand positive confession and declaring
Yeah.
what isn't as it is and all that stuff. But when you just say, "Hey guys, I need help,"
Yeah.
how can we
Yeah.
really help leaders, people, just in this particular part of the spectrum?
Right.
Let me give you one very good example. This is just a quick funny joke. Someone who literally had gotten a job because someone had given a good referral, walks into an interview room, and they say, "Well, why should we give you this job?" And she starts to speak in tongues and say, "Because God told me this is mine. I claimed it." And and they looked
Wow.
at each other and were like, "She's crazy," and she
Right.
lost that opportunity.
Of course.
So I think we need to talk to people of faith as well.
Right.
What would you say to that?
Yeah. So growing up, in the home of a pastor, so there's that, right? I'm
Yep.
a pastor's kid, so all of this is like, what do you mean you're depressed?
Mhm.
What do you better get in there and you better fast and pray for a couple of days and
Come
get
on.
yourself together and bind those demons and all of that stuff. But to Sister Kemi's point, it's about awareness. It's about educating ourselves.
Right.
It's about bringing to the forefront the understanding of depression, the understanding of anxiety, the understanding of mental health, because we're so quick to say, "Oh, it's a demon." Well, you know what? Maybe it is, but I need you
Maybe
to
it is.
educate me on this demon, okay? I
Right.
need the education around it. And I think that one of the biggest ways for us to do that is just really educating from the top down, from the pastors, the bishops, the priests, whomever is in the seat of eldership. We need to educate them, because
Right.
we talk about, we have Cancer Awareness Month, and we have Autism Awareness Month, and we have all these things that we bring to the table, and we talk
Right.
about, oh, we're going to wear pink for Pink Sunday, we're going to wear red for Heart Sunday, but yet we take mental health and we put it to the background because it's such a taboo, in quotations, to talk about. It's time for
Right.
us to educate everyone so that they feel comfortable saying, "Hey, you know what? I really do feel bad. I feel this way. I feel like I need help. I need you to help me." And the church has to be a safe place. We have to be
So
the
good.
safe place for people.
Yep.
Because if we are not the safe place, then where are the people going to go?
Yep.
Where are they going to go? And I think,
Right.
Sister Kemi brought up an amazing point, that when you have a physical ailment, right, there's a headache. So you Tylenol, take the Tylenol, but then we do the digging to find out what's causing the headache. So that's what we need to do in the church when it comes to mental health. Before we say, "All right, I'm going to cast you, and do an exorcism," we need to figure it out. Like, what is happening? What is the root cause of you feeling this way? And I think it's all about education. It's all about education.
Wow, this is really good. We have about 15 minutes, and I really want to jump into a couple of things. I'm going to take a few questions in the comments. So please feel free to throw your questions in the comment. This is for you. It's not for us. It's for you. If you're watching this, this is really to help answer some of those questions. And it's been so good so far, man. I'm loving it. Let's talk about unhealthy habits. Our unhealthy cycles of unhealthy behavior. Is that a form of mental disorder? And what are some practical ways that you can begin to stop those habits? For example, like eating disorders, like, just overeating, just so many different things that just might fall under bad habits. Let's start with you, Kemi.
Sure. So unhealthy habits, I think it depends on which ones. Eating disorders are very specific, very, very, they're so delicate. So I throw those under it's a mental health disorder. There's a diagnosis code for it. Let's go to other habits. Substance abuse. Of course, those are mental disorders. They have the DSM criteria. Smoking, of course, that isn't, but it is an addiction. Alcohol. So many different types of addictions are out there. Sex addiction. The list goes on and on. Of course, sex addiction then comes under a mental health disorder. So we kind of need to kind of look at each one specifically. It's important to think about the pathway in the brain. Gambling, of course, that's a mental health disorder because it follows the same pathway that a person that's getting high. It's kind of like the same rush and adrenaline and all of that stuff. Substance use, eating disorder. So when we talk about the habit, we have to look at it specifically. Do I just stay up all night and watch TV because I'm just kind of used to that? Or am I depressed at night? Am I having sleep issues and I'm just afraid to go to bed? And then that starts opening up a door for a mental health disorder. So we need to look at, the different habits. So I feel that as a people, and I'm going to come at us as Christians first, and then I'll kind of open it up larger. As Christian folks, we're not disciplined. I feel that it's so easy for us to say, just go and pray. We have the word of knowledge. We have the Bible. We have so many resources just right there for us. We become spoiled. So it's very easy for a lot of Christians. You hear all these scandals like, oh, this person has 50 girlfriends and, he's a pastor and he preaches on relationships. Those things occur because we're not disciplined. We rely on this escape of I'm a Christian. So it's very important, first of all, to have this self-awareness of what are my limitations? What are my triggers? What's my family history? What did my dad do? What did my mom do? And yes, maybe, I do have these unhealthy habits that I need to now be very, very careful to see, okay, if it's, and I'm going to just throw one out, that's not a mental health disorder, because if it's a mental health disorder, then there is need for mental health help, medications, counseling, but just regular everyday habits. And I'm going if you think of any, just throw one out, like, I'm just thinking things that people do that could be, I'm going to use things like sexual things, because that's a taboo. We can't talk about that. There's habits that people have, sexually unhealthy habits, and it's just kind of become part of it. It's fun, it's things we do. We look at those and, okay, it's just a habit. So we look at the spiritual part of it. Of course, it could become a stronghold starting from, there's a reason why I'm engaging in this habit. Is it because I have trauma related to something related to sex? Is it because I watch certain movies on TV? Is it because I have certain thoughts? I read certain books. So it's important to see which route, how did this become a habit? Is it so hard and so strong now that I can't break it on my own? Do I need an accountability partner like Coach Rosie mentioned? So I think we need to take each habit very, very specifically and look at it sort of like the course, the path. How long has it been? Have I spoken to anyone about it? Is it a secret? Am I afraid to share it? So, the Bible talks about the person that covers their sin. It kind of stays with them. They can't prosper. So I think just being able to get to that place. Yes, I look good. I don't feel symptoms of depression. I'm the pastor. I'm doing well. take a moment to look at your internal world where no one sees you.
Come on.
That's kind of
Right.
where it comes
That's
from.
good.
Am I a good husband? Am I a good father? Am I a good leader? Are people terrified of me secretly? So I think it
Mhm.
comes back to that place of
Man,
discipline,
you're shaking some stuff
awareness.
today, yo.
Yeah,
And I feel like
she's getting there.
we need all day to discuss this. And, I'm going to
Yeah.
just let
So
you
good.
kind of take over there, Coach Rosa.
Yeah, so everything you said, right? I'm with you on everything you said. And I think that when I think of unhealthy habits, I think of it in the sense of self-medicating. So what are you running from?
Mm.
What are you scared of? It's like, she just said, like, look at the part of you that no one else sees, because if you look at that part, that will answer your question. It usually does answer your question. It's what are you running from? What are you hiding from? What are you so scared of that you've now found yourself self-medicating with this unhealthy habit? Because
So good.
we generally don't have unhealthy habits if we're not trying to cover something up.
Right.
There's that, right? So
Wow.
for me, like she said, there's so many, you kind of have to dig deeper when it comes to unhealthy habits to see what exactly is the root cause of it, because it could be a traumatic experience. It could be, what you're watching is triggering you. It could be what you're listening to. It could be your environment. There's so many different things that play into the you having an unhealthy habit. So yeah.
Right. I think we've lost.
Did we lose him? Did we freeze up?
See,
Well,
he's coming back, I think.
okay,
Are you there?
maybe not.
Ah, we keep talking.
Yeah, there's technology for you.
Right.
But yeah, I think what you mentioned too about churches and just how, especially with pastors, I think the biggest thing with pastors, we for pastors, we put them on this pedestal. We put them in this place where it's like, oh, they're the closest thing to God. But yes, they may be, in that place, but we also
Right.
have to remember that they are human. They,
Yes.
they're a vessel that God has chosen to stand in leadership for us, but it doesn't
Yes.
necessarily mean that they're without blame or they're without blemish. So I think it's very important for leaders too to be very honest and open with what they're
Yes.
going through. And I think a lot of times we, as preachers, having watched my dad for so many years,
Mhm.
he carried so much of people's burdens. And then if you are an empath, like most pastors are, if you are an empath, it's so hard for you to sometimes detach from that
Of
and
course.
and really find yourself, taking time for yourself. And I've been learning that a lot these last couple of years, that you have to take time to move away from your everyday life and really
Yeah.
give yourself time and space to evaluate, because it
Yeah.
does, it's easy to take on other people's stuff,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then it becomes your stuff subconsciously, and then you
Right.
start to form these unhealthy habits and you start to
Yes.
find yourself in places. So it's always important for us to find time to detach from our norm and
Yeah.
So
detach
good.
from our everyday experiences in order for us to really be able to take care of us so that these
Right.
unhealthy habits don't form. So
So good. Wow.
yeah, good
I
point.
lost connection for a few seconds there. But
Mhm.
that was so good. Okay, so we have technically 3 minutes. I
Mhm.
would like you each to do a 1 minute on two questions. Let's start with you, Kemi, with this one question. Just do 1 minute on it.
All right.
How do you detect someone who is likely to commit suicide and rescue before it crystallizes? I lost a colleague just before last Christmas, and it was really a shock to all of us in my office.
It's impossible practically to determine if a person is going to go through it or not. So we just
Mhm.
have these screening tools. Do they have a plan? What are some of the things they've been watching lately? What are they posting on Facebook? Kind of looking at some of those tiny little details, because people can mask it very well. They'll tell
So,
you, "Oh, I'm good," and then something happens. So it's important not to take care of this alone. We need as much support as we can get. Pastors, doctors, we need to expose it. So we can't keep it secret. We can't say, I'm going to just check on you, buddy, and just keep seeing how you're doing. It's larger than one person, and it's important to look at all of those warning signs.
Thank you. Very good.
Yes.
All right, Coach Rosie, you can do a 1 minute on this one. How would you advise someone
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, go
so
ahead.
How would you advise someone who has experienced something traumatic that affects them years after, but is part of a culture that encourages or even enforces silence?
So that's a really good question. And delicately, I will say to you, do what you need to do for you. I understand that you may be a part of a culture that encourages or even enforces silence, but you also have to remember that your life is your responsibility. You are responsible for you. And so if you have dealt with something traumatic that is still affecting you, you have to get help. There's just no way around it, because it cripples the rest of your life. It cripples you being able to live a full and purposeful life. So I say to you, please find a way to get help, because if it's enforcing silence and they're encouraging you to be silent about it, that cannot be a healthy environment.
Correct.
And I'm just going to leave it there.
So good.
Yeah.
Hey guys, want to say thank you. We're really out of time today, but thank you so much, Coach Rosie. Thank you so much, Kemi. How can people find you? Kemi, do you have a website, IG? How can we?
I do. Change with Kemi, on Instagram and Facebook.
Change with
Kemi.
Okay, fantastic. And Coach Rosie, how can people find you?
I am on all social media platforms as It's Coach Rosie.
Hello.
You can find me there, and my website information is on there as well.
Well, I want to thank you both. Please follow them, support them, get in touch with them. They are amazing. They know what they're talking about, so please connect with them. I want to say thank you to you both for being here today. Very quickly, we've got our next event, which is coming up on the 10th of April. And we're going to be having Jake White, the founder of Party O and Vibe 18. This is a member-only event. So if you're a member of God Culture, please attend this event. We also have VIP invitations for guests. So if this is your first time, being part of our Grow Virtuals, please, you can join us. Go to our website and you can register our RSVP for that. It's absolutely free. And then we've got Pastor Anna Morgan, who is going to be speaking on purpose. This is going to be the last Saturday of April of this month. So we've got a powerful lineup. This month of April is the month of purpose. Last month was mental wholeness. This month is about purpose, discovering your purpose, walking in purpose. So we want to encourage you to join us and want to thank you for being part of this stream. If you still have questions, please email them to events@godculture.org. I want to say thank you to our panel of experts today and our team, God Culture, that have been hosting on the chat. God bless you all. Have an amazing Saturday.